Hey, it's your friend Lindsay. Welcome to Small Business Growth Tools, where we grow our businesses and our faith. Stick around and I'll teach you how to take intentional action to grow your small business. Sales confidence is not something that you're born with. It's something that you build. And here's where most women get stuck. You're waiting to feel confident before you show up, before you follow up, before you ask for the sale, before you lead the conversation. And because you're waiting, you're actually staying stuck. So today we're going to dive deeper. I'm going to give you 5 tips, but it's not just 5 sales confidence tips. I'm going to show you what's actually happening underneath your lack of confidence and how to shift it in a way that changes how you show up immediately. Welcome back to Small Business Growth Tools. I'm Lindsay Fletcher, and I'm here to help you and your team get really good at sales. And today we're building real confidence, not the fake it till you make it situation. We're building sales confidence, the kind that stays with you in real conversations when you go to ask for the sale or when you go to say your pricing without cutting it in half. So if this is your first episode, welcome to the show. I'm really happy that you're here for this one. If you decide to stick around for more, we'll do a quick little virtual handshake and you'll hit the follow or subscribe button and I'll keep hitting publish on these episodes. If you've been a listener of this show for a while, it is my absolute pleasure to serve you each and every week. So thank you for being here for this episode. So let's dive straight in with the 5 sales confidence tips every woman, and I think especially every Christian woman, needs right now. Tip number 1 is confidence comes from being clear. It's not coming from your personality. Okay, so let's start there. Confidence is not about being outgoing. It's not about being charismatic or lighting up the room when you walk in. It's about knowing what you're doing in a sales conversation, and it's about leading. So I once had a client who kept saying, I just don't feel confident. I'm just not confident. She just kept saying that over and over. But when we looked at her actual sales conversations, she was literally guessing the entire time. She was guessing what to say, what to ask. She was not asking questions when she should have been. And because she wasn't asking questions, she was guessing what they needed, right? There was hesitation when her potential customer would pause because the silence was a little bit awkward because they were both maybe a little bit confused. And then she would use filler words and explanations that weren't actually relevant to the conversation, but she got nervous and would just start word vomiting, right? And it wasn't because she wasn't capable of selling and leading well. It was because she didn't have a clear structure for her sales conversations. She didn't know how to lead and guide the conversation from one point to the next. Now, I want to talk about what happens in your brain in these types of situations, because when we know what's happening in our brain, we can actually try to fix it. So your brain doesn't feel safe when it doesn't know what's coming next. So your brain tries to compensate and then it tells you to talk more, or explain more, or fill in those gaps where there needs to be a pause for thinking or processing, right? The result of that is actually lower confidence. And listen, we've all felt those things. Like, all of us who have been in sales for a really long time, even those of us who teach sales, we've all felt that lack of confidence. But here's what happens when you get clear on what to say and what to ask and when to ask it and how to guide the conversation. My client's confidence didn't feel forced anymore. She wasn't going into these conversations with the mentality of fake it till you make it, right? When she got clear on her sales process, her conversations became more effective. But that's not actually what surprised her. She told me that she didn't feel drained after talking to people anymore, and that was the biggest surprise of it all for her. She stopped replaying those conversations over and over, and she stopped carrying those conversations into dinner with her family and friends, and she ended up being more present as a result because she was more focused during her work time. So here's a confidence builder that I want you to do, okay? I want you to write down what questions you need answered ahead of your next sales conversation. 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, "For God is not a God of confusion, but a God of peace." And here's what happens in your sales conversations. When you're not clear on a structure or a framework, there ends up being confusion by you and your customers. And confusion is actually a killer of confidence. So put in the work and get clear on your sales conversations. Tip number 2, confidence grows when you stop making it about you. Now, most insecurity in sales comes from one thing. We're self-focused. What we're saying, what we're not saying, are we saying it right? Do they think I'm being salesy or pushy? That focus is self-focused, right? And so you might be surprised to hear that I actually have no agenda when I go into sales conversations. And what I mean by that is when I meet with someone about doing sales consulting or training with them and their team, I have prepared ahead of time. Okay. I have a plan for the conversation. I've written down questions that I need answers, like what my deal breakers are. And by deal breakers, I mean like anything that makes me not the best option for them. Okay. I've written down my pricing and I've written down the next steps if we decide to move forward together. Right. I'm in information gathering and inquiry mode. I'm listening for cues and I want to gain as much information and intel about their business so that I can say, yes, I have the solution, or I'm actually not the person you should work with at this stage or on this problem, right? But I don't have a plan on how I'm going to convince someone to work with me. I genuinely want to make sure that I understand what the actual problem is, understand as much as I possibly can to determine if I can solve that problem for them. I'm not focused on me and what I can do for them. I'm focused on what they need and what they want. I'm focused on how they perceive the problem, and I ask questions to uncover anything that might be missing. So I'm focused on them. I'm not focused on me and what I sell. So if you're focusing on yourself and you're in a conversation, your brain is telling you things like, am I saying this right? Do they like me? What if I just messed up that question? Or what if they think I'm being pushy? You're making it about you. And oftentimes that makes us get a little bit weird in conversations, right? We over-explain and we don't ask enough questions and we dive into pitching too soon. So here's what's happening in your brain. Your brain is trying to protect you from rejection, from discomfort, from feeling embarrassed. And in doing that, it shifts your focus away from the client and your brain is actually focusing on you. But when you shift to focusing on what they need, what they're actually saying to you and how you can help them, everything can slow down a little bit. You can become a better listener. You respond instead of reacting. And when you shift from focusing on you to focusing on them, it takes the pressure off. You relax a little bit. Your body softens, right? Your conversations start to feel natural again and not forced. And outside of business, you stop overthinking those interactions. You stop analyzing every word that you said and you start feeling more like yourself again. I've been talking a lot about how you don't have to change who you are to be really good at sales. And this is part of that. When you take the focus off of you, you can be you just with a better skill set. Now, from a faith perspective, Philippians 2:3 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility, consider others above yourselves. When sales is rooted in service, it removes the pressure and the focus that we're putting on us, and it puts it back where the focus should be, which is on them. So here's your confidence builder. Before every conversation, ask, what does this person need right now? You're not asking, what do I need to say? The women who feel confident in sales aren't the ones that are the most polished. They're the most prepared. They've put in the most reps and they've practiced and they're putting the focus on others, which leads me to tip number 3. Back to those repetitions. Confidence comes from putting in the reps, not from perfection. Okay. You're not going to think your way into confidence. You have to act your way into it. And as my friend Rachel said on the last episode, you have to fail forward so that you can get better. Let me ask you a question. If you were trying something for the first time, would you expect yourself to be really good at it? Probably not. But if you put some sweat equity behind it, you'll see improvements over time. Think about the first time that you drove a car. You probably were gripping the wheel. You were probably overthinking everything. Your eyes were kind of darting around, right? And after years and years of driving, you drive without thinking. You get from your house to the grocery store without even thinking about what you're doing. Sometimes you don't even remember the drive. That's how easy it becomes. Well, sales works the exact same way. The more repetitions, the more reps you put in, the more practice that you get, the better you get at sales. It's the same concept, okay? So here's what's happening in your brain. Your brain builds confidence through finding evidence of what it believes. And evidence of good sales conversations only comes from repetitions. It comes from putting in the work. That's why I do so much role playing in the workshops that I lead, because the more practice you get, the better you get at working through that in real time, right? Every conversation becomes data. That's it. It's just data. It doesn't have to be judgment or failure or I'm terrible at this. It can just be data points that you review and then improve upon during your next conversation. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Repetition builds competence, which turns into confidence. And God's word says that we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Let's move on. Tip number 4, confidence requires you to lead. Confidence is not just about how you feel. It's about how you lead. I see this all the time, okay? A great conversation happens and then it ends with, let me know what you think. Or if you have any questions, let me know. And everything falls apart from there because the client is left without a clear path forward. And they're specifically left without a clear path forward with you. And then as you know, nothing moves forward. We've all done it. We've all had the let me know what you think situation happen. We've all said those things, right? So don't think that it's only you. But what I'm trying to tell you is that when you don't lead them to the next steps, they're left wondering what the next steps might have been, or they move on with their life and don't think about it again. So here's what's happening in your brain. Your brain is avoiding responsibility in the sales process and conversation. And that may feel a little bit harsh, like I'm not avoiding responsibility, right? But again, it goes back to what we believe about sales and what we believe about ourselves as women in sales. So if you believe that you aren't in sales, or you believe that you're bad at sales, your brain will work to prove you right by collecting evidence to confirm what you believe. So your brain then doesn't allow you to believe that you have the responsibility of leadership through the sales conversation. But when you lead with, let's schedule the next step, or I'll send the contract and I'll follow up with you on Friday, you can create a clear path forward, and that builds trust. When you lead, clients feel safe and then decisions happen faster. And then for you don't sit there wondering what's going to happen. You don't keep checking your phone. You don't feel that lingering uncertainty all evening or all week or all month. You created the next steps and you both know what to expect. Now, Joshua 1:9 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Confidence grows when you act in courage. Sales confidence grows when you are courageous enough to take a leadership role in your sales conversations. So here's your confidence builder. Set a daily goal of 1 conversation per day or 3 conversations per day. Not perfect conversations, just repetitions, right? We're just putting in reps. We're just getting better and better every day with leading those conversations. Tip number 5, and this is probably the most important one. And as I was putting this episode together, I realized that I was probably preaching to myself more than I may be preaching to you, but this one may be one that you also need to listen for. Tip number 5 is confidence comes when you trust God with the outcome. You are responsible for showing up. You're responsible for putting in the work, for putting in the reps, for doing the things that you know need to happen. Here's what I want to remind you of, and what I'm reminding myself. You are not responsible for the outcome. That pressure that you feel in sales conversations, not only is it from not knowing how to lead the sales conversation, but it also could be because you're trying to control the outcome. What if they say no? What if I lose this? And so then you carry it around and you take the responsibility of the outcome onto your shoulders, and that can feel really heavy, can't it? The outcome is not your responsibility. So here's what's happening in your brain. Your brain is trying to create certainty. Again, this goes back to our brains trying to keep us safe. And certainty is not our job. Obedience is. When you release the outcome to God, when you show up, you serve, you lead, and then you let God handle the rest, that creates a confidence that God will show up for you. So Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your work to the Lord and your plans will succeed. That's actually the New Living Translation. And I actually looked through several translations of Proverbs 16:3, and I wanted to put this one in there because commit your work to the Lord and your plans will succeed. You have to trust him with the outcome. Okay. So here's your confidence builder. Before every conversation, you're going to say a prayer and you're going to say, God, I'm showing up. I'm expecting you to handle the outcome of this. Friend, confidence isn't something that you wait for. It's something you build by taking action. You build sales confidence by preparing so that you know what you need to ask. It's by serving and putting the focus on them. It's about putting in those repetitions, practicing and practicing, leading sales conversations, and most importantly, trusting God with the outcome. I realized while I was talking through each of these points that I need to do a better job of that last one. I'm showing up, I'm putting in the work, I'm putting in the reps, and I need to do a better job of trusting God with the outcome. So maybe that was as much for me today as it was for you. If this episode encouraged you, make sure to follow or subscribe so that you don't miss what's coming next. As always, I'm praying for you and I'm praying for your business, and I'll talk to you next week.